3 months ago, I titled myself as the strategic advisor for tech founders. This week, on my evening walk, Infinite Intelligence gave me a completely new title, a title that has never been hired for in the history of tech companies in Silicon Valley. If you are someone who's building something that has never been built before and you're tired of positioning yourself with language that is designed for someone else, then stay with me. By the end of this video, you will see what happens when you stop diluting your greatness and start saying it out loud. If you're tracking this series, then please make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell icon to be notified every time I upload a new video. Hi, I'm Ajita and welcome to my YouTube channel. With over 20 years of corporate executive experience, I am now the strategic advisor to tech founders and senior tech leaders and executive leadership teams, upgrading their internal leadership architecture and consciousness to lead at visionary scale. What I share with you in this video is my live business building experience. I am not building this business from hustle or grind. Instead, I'm using 4 key principles, what I call 4 I's. Number 1, infinite intelligence. Number 2, identity. Number 3, intuition. Number 4, inspired action. This is my live case study of going from 0 to $4.4 million in 12 months or less using the framework that I leverage with my clients called the Epic Leadership Operating System, where in the word epic, E stands for emotional, P for physical, I for intellectual, and C for consciousness. On a different higher level, the same epic translates to energy, purpose, intuition, and creation. Week by week, you will see invisible shifts that create visible results. We are now on week 8. Here's what shifted. This week, I'm shifting things up a little bit. Instead of going through each layer of the Epic Leadership Operating System and the shift I experienced based on that framework, I'm going to talk about the external events that unfolded in my reality this week and taking you through each event, how it impacted my internal operating system on all the 4 different levels: emotional, physical, intellectual, and consciousness. And most importantly, which is the core operating system that I ended up working on against that particular event that caused the shift, thereby changing something in my reality. Because here's the truth. The external events are not random, nor are they, coincidences. They are a clear mirror that reflects back to us which level of our operating system is still running the old program or old code. So I started using this particular method and it has been transformational. Truth is, I have always been using it this way, just that I presented it differently until this week. So from here on, we're going to look at every single event that has unfolded in my reality that is impactful, that caused a dissonance in my operating system on any one of the 4 layers or all 4 layers, and which one did I work on to shift in order to make something change in my reality. So day 1, I did nothing business related. And it was fascinating for me because as someone who always is busy doing something, this was a very refreshing change for me. So what happened externally? Well, Wednesday this week happened to be full moon in Libra. I'm highly moon sensitive in many ways, which means my body really responds to the moon cycles. And the full moon in Libra, prompted me to do less work. So I sat with myself, did meditation. I listened to a lot of music, songs. I sang quite a bit. And I also decided to just binge watch K-drama. And this week, what captivated me was Captivating the King. That was the title of the K-drama that had 16 episodes, and I started watching it. It was a welcome shift from constantly allowing my mind to churn on what should I be doing? Why is this not happening? The mental chatter, the intellectual operating system kind of had to take a backseat because I was busy with focusing on something completely, I wouldn't call it mind-numbing, but something that didn't quite involve me to think. And I completely got engrossed in watching that K-drama. And the beauty about this is those 2 days that I didn't do anything at all business related, I felt the most calm, peaceful, aligned, and really chilled out. And it felt very, very refreshingly different for me. So because this is the choice that I made externally, what happened in my internal operating system, going through the EPIC framework, emotionally, I would say I felt completely joyful. Like I said last week, joy is my new compass. So I felt joyful, effortless, chilled out, and the kind of state you really can't fake. It's something that you just are in the state of being. And physically, I didn't exert myself. I did go for my dance classes. That was a physical activity. Those 2 days, I did do some yoga, moved my body, and I also felt a lot of energy. Even though I was not doing anything per se, I did feel a surge of energy. And intellectual operating system is where the biggest shift was, because the mind that keeps thinking you should be doing this, you should be doing that, that chatter kind of died down quite a bit. And even more beautiful is the narrative saying that the real work, what I had to tell myself is the real work is my state of being, not what I'm doing, but who I am being. So that allowed for me to really relax and not worry too much or to get into too much of the mental spiral. And the consciousness OS layer, it is really sitting in the identity of a woman whose beingness really attracts the business rather than my doingness. So it almost felt like the goddess energy of simply being the most powerful version of me without efforting. And truth be told, all of this was completely new for me. But this is what I felt intuitively very aligned with. A part of me, again, going back to intellectual operating system, kept saying, you're just being lazy, you're just procrastinating. You see how that works? But I didn't listen to that part of me because I knew deep down that this is really the point at which I was integrating something, if you may. I don't have a better word or a way to explain it. I felt like I was integrating something into my body, and it felt real, it felt good, and that's all that mattered. The mind keeps telling you something because it is still running the old program. It is still expecting you to be the version that you were before. But I knew that something in me had changed. I realized that the identity that I was embodying, or I am embodying, is one where the business is built through my being, not through my doing. And it is the awareness that my body is a vessel that the infinite intelligence speaks through. And that's how the deal is going to happen, or the deals are going to happen. The business is going to be magnetizing people to me rather than me chasing. Big shift in the approach. If I look at which operating system did I really work on to shift, I would say somewhat it's intellectual operating system. However, I think even there, I think the biggest shift would be that, being productive means progress, right? That is what we've been programmed, that if I'm productive, I'm progress. And if I'm not productive, then I'm not progressing. But I will say that this week has been one of those weeks that is profoundly transformational from within, because I did the least amount of work, but I felt I had the most amount of shift in my beingness. So to sum up, the outer operating system actions as a result of this incident that led to these internal operating events or changes, and then the shift that I went through, the outer action in this particular case was I really decided to do nothing. I followed my joy. I allowed myself to be in the energy without falling into the trap of, I have to do something, I'm not doing something, so something, nothing will progress. All of those things just dissipated. And I enjoyed my time singing songs and moving my body and simply being in the energy of that calmness and peace. I think that has been my biggest. This will probably be the week where the outer operating system actions are pretty much nil or maybe minimum. And the new thing about this is also that because joy is my new compass, I keep measuring how joyful am I right now. How joyful am I right now? That question, or how much more joyful can I be right now? That kind of keeps me in track. I would say that is my key performance indicator for those of us that are techies and are business oriented and are looking at key performance indicators as the measure of progress. My key performance indicator is how joyful have I been this week. I think that's actually a really fun way to measure progress in business, because it doesn't feel like grind, it doesn't feel like a hustle, it doesn't feel like I have to do something, but I'm simply in the knowing that it's all done already. So I'm really in the energy of my goals are accomplished. How do I feel? Oh, I feel incredibly joyful and powerful. And then on Friday, the second incident or event that unfolded was I was scheduled to meet with the IRS tax audit officer and their manager as a result of the audit response. It was part of the process, but my intuition was so loud. They typically say intuition is never loud, but in my case, the intuition was very loud, saying for some reason that I should postpone that meeting or not meet with them at all. And as luck would have it, I was not feeling well, neither was my son. We both were dealing with some sickness. And so I called and left them a message saying that both of us are unwell, so please, we need to reschedule. I had reached out to an attorney that I have hired for me to deal with this particular case, and I was not able to have that conversation until the 14th because everybody is busy filing taxes. If you are in the US, you will probably appreciate it. Everybody is busy filing taxes, and the attorney wasn't available to meet with me until after the 14th. And so I had written to the attorney saying, this is the case, should I meet with these auditors or not? And she hadn't responded to me until Friday early morning, but I had already made the decision because I was not feeling well, neither was my son. So I messaged them saying I cannot meet them on Friday. But as luck would have it, Friday early morning, my attorney responds by saying that it is best for me to not meet with them right now until I gather more information, gather more documentation, and so on and so forth, because the audit is already complete. And anything further that I meet with them without additional evidence, additional documentation is only going to hurt my case. That was her professional opinion. And I was amazed at my intuition because my intuition didn't have a reason. It only said, you need to move the meeting. You can't meet with them right now. That's all I got as intuitive hit. And to be validated that very conclusion to the result, I didn't have the logical reason behind it, but being a professional, she did. And to see that my intuition was validated by a professional right after I made the decision and took the action was really, really powerful for me. This particular incident, let's unravel it in terms of my inner operating system. What unfolded there? Emotionally, I was not freaking out. I was very calm. I was relaxed. I felt peaceful. I knew that this is something I was scheduled to meet, and I was okay with, even though the intuition said I shouldn't, I was observing it, I was receiving the message, but I wasn't getting riled up in any way emotionally. And physically, my body felt more relaxed. I slept very well, and I didn't feel contraction, nor did I feel any urge to start working through the documentation. There was no such urgency in my physical body. Intellectually, I would say my new narrative is that my intuition is louder than my logic. So that is a new narrative for me, that my intuition is louder than my logic, or my logical mind has been my new intellectual operating system paradigm. And I do believe that my logical mind is finally catching up with my intuitive nudges. And that is really worth celebrating for someone like me who's on this journey of building my business using intuition as one of the key pillars and infinite intelligence as another source of inspiration and source of information. It is beautiful validation, to say the least. Here is the other irony, if you may, is that the intuition also kept nudging me to visualize or to manifest that the IRS debt goes down to a zero. And in my logical mind, I'm like, how can that be? I do have things to pay. I do have, I know I owe some expenses that I need to pay. That's like that contradiction that was coming through. And I said, okay, you know what? No harm in visualizing. I don't have to pay a penny to anybody to visualize. So I said, okay, I'll follow my intuition and start to visualize and start to manifest and start to put the energy and focus of that IRS debt, tax audit debt coming down to a zero. That's new for me, but I'm trusting the process. And on the consciousness level, my identity, I will say, I was completely in this embodiment of all of life is working out for me. And which meant that the infinite intelligence is working on my behalf. I don't need to know the how. I don't need to know the what. I don't need to know the when. I don't need to know all the details. Because I don't want to be micromanaging infinite intelligence because it is infinite. My intelligence is limited, not infinite intelligence, right? And so the identity that I was holding is of someone that just knew that all of life is working on my behalf. And that included this IRS topic or the IRS thing that I'm dealing with. So there's a lot of peace in my system. I will say the biggest shift for this event or from this event or incident has been that my identity, I rooted it in saying that fear no longer runs in my life. I will not allow fear to run my life. Intuition is my new boss. How about that? I said, my intuition is my new boss and I'm answerable to my intuition. My logic will follow. That is my new identity and the energy that I was embodying through that particular incident to be able to come out with this process. And as luck would have it, outer operating system action that I took was to call and let them know I wasn't well, which I wasn't well. And so it was easy, a synchronistic luck that matched up to say, okay, I wasn't well and here is why I couldn't make it. And it worked out in my favor in terms of matching my intuition with a logical response from the attorney. So the third incident that unfolded on Friday this week is something that came out of nowhere. all of a sudden, I had this huge urge to do 10,000 steps, walk 10,000 steps. So I downloaded an app from the App Store that would track the steps, number of steps, and I started walking. I went out. It was a beautiful week with a very high temperature, warm temperature. So I said, okay, this is my sign and I'm going to walk. And I started walking, and it was one of the best experiences because the walking itself was very cathartic to my body. And more importantly, there were things that came to my awareness. You can call them downloads or infinite intelligence, dropping some truth bombs in my awareness. And that was magical. So in terms of this walk and what it unfolded for me on the epic layers is that on the emotional operating system, I felt a surge of joy, a surge of energy, and I did feel the goddess energy getting activated out of nowhere. I have no idea where that came from, but I felt it viscerally. And physically, I felt the body move, and my legs are actually, I've been wanting to move my legs more. That's why I started doing more than one type of dancing in the past few weeks. And so my physical body was actually pretty activated because I felt the energy and the move and the push that I was making through the activity of walking for 10,000 steps, which is about 4 to 5 miles of walking. Awareness that came to me as I was walking was that I'm activating and really grounding the energy using my legs and my root, the root chakra or the energy center. So I was really grounding the energy through the process of walking. And as you may be aware of in Eastern philosophy, root chakra, which is at the base of your spine, responsible for your financial security, stability, and so on. So the awareness came through that I'm actually preparing my body to receive more, and which will tie back to the intellectual operating system. So as the body was moving, I got this downloads and awareness or epiphany that my body is actually getting prepared to be the vessel to receive the abundance that I'm manifesting, the $4.4 million intention that I've set. Because there's a lot of, 2 weeks ago I talked about fascia, right? And so the more the body moves, especially in the area of hips and legs, which is all where I have the heavy energy stored, the more I started walking these 10,000 steps, and it's not just Friday, actually, I've been doing that consistently for the last 4 days. Today I'm recording it on Tuesday, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all 4 days I've done 10,000 steps walk besides doing other physical activity. So the awareness that came through was that as I'm moving my body, the fascia is, the connective tissue is being loosened or being hydrated, and being the energy stuck there is being released, so that the body has the capacity, the nervous system then has the capacity, along with the fascia supporting that process, to receive abundantly. So this is the awareness that came through the intellectual operating system as I was moving my physical body. And in terms of identity on a consciousness level, it became evident that I am now embodying the identity, not just thinking or saying that to be my identity, but embodying. The body is now ready as a result of this process, or being prepared as a result of this process, to receive 7-figure clients and be able to, ground, be rooted, and also be expansive at the same time, so that I can welcome these high-level clients without flinching when I get that kind of a deal my way. The identity is now getting anchored, to put it more beautifully. To sum up, the inner operating system that had the biggest shift, I would say, is the physical operating system, because I did go for 10,000 step walk. And as a result of that, I would say there was a shift in awareness in the intellectual operating system to say, hey, you're moving the body so that you can receive. That download or connection happened in the intellectual operating system. And then it landed in the identity, which is the consciousness operating system. So here is some important message that I want to bring to bear for everybody who's on a journey of, bringing something massive into your life, especially when it comes to financial abundance. There are a lot of people that talk about and are coaching and teaching and leading from a place of mindset. And I was someone who started my journey in the intellectual operating system as the prime paradigm 10 years ago. So there is not anything wrong with moving towards mindset, but the work does not get complete until your body catches up to what your mind has shifted and changed. So it's not enough if you have the right beliefs. It's not enough if you have the right feelings. It's not enough if you have the techniques like visualization and affirmations and meditation, whatever. Ultimately, your ability to receive anything in your life is directly related to how safe your body is feeling. Pay attention to this. It is directly related. Your ability to receive is directly related to how safe your body feels, which includes your nervous system, includes your fascia. How safe does your body feel to receive? Because you can do years of belief work, you can do years of emotional purging, you can do years of meditation, visualization, everything. It is not until your physical body feels safe to receive. And receive does not mean money alone. I'm talking about receiving love, receiving guidance, receiving intuitive nudges from the universe, from source, intelligence, God, creator, however you call it, right? That is receiving too. Your ability to receive, period, is directly related to how safe you feel on all the 4 levels. You have to feel intellectually safe, emotionally safe, physically safe, and as an identity, you have to hold the identity of someone who feels safe in this world. It is not until you have the 4 layers that are working in tandem with this identity and this level of safety will you receive to the extent you are meant to receive. Very important. All of us are receiving at all times. All of us are. We're all receiving. To the extent we feel safe, we receive. Now I'm on a mission to up-level my level of safety. Now I'm upping my level to receive to a much, much higher level, not just in monetary terms, but in terms of support, in terms of people, partnerships, love, abundance, opportunities, visibility, right? All of this is ability to receive. So I want to land this key message is your ability to receive anything in your life is directly related to how safe you feel on all the 4 levels, emotionally, physically, mentally, or intellectually, and in identity. The last step in this process typically is the embodiment, which is everybody works on their mindset for a long time, beliefs and thoughts. Everybody works on the emotional stuff, purging, clearing, tapping out your emotions, where 90% of people that have been on this long personal development work end up not achieving the outcome is when they do not embody this shift on these other 2 levels into their physical body. That is going to require for you to learn how to make your nervous system feel safe and work through fascia, which means your dance routines, your exercise, your yoga is not just nice to have. It is part of your expansion of who you are and your ability to receive. So the key outer action that I took this week, needless to say, was consistently walking 10,000 steps 4 days in a row that I've completed so far. And I also decided that I'm not going to be using this walking as a time to plan. Instead, it's a time for me to receive infinite intelligence inputs. And I also got clarity that my physical movement is not any longer a nice to have. It is my rigor, it is my practice daily to expand my capacity to receive. So it has changed how I see movement and exercise as something, oh, I gotta do this. No, I get to do this because it helps me expand my capacity to receive. And that is a wonderful shift in itself. So incident number 4, that happened alongside when I was taking this 10,000 step walk on Friday. So what exactly happened? This is the walk, this is the incident where the infinite intelligence gave me a clear download of renaming my title. So when I started on relaunching and revamping my offering in January this year, I decided to pivot into calling myself a strategic advisor. And the reason I went in that direction is because the work that I do is a combination or a composite of coaching, healing, teaching, mentoring, and so on. Being called a coach alone was not quite fitting the bill. An advisor felt perfect. So I said, okay, I'm the strategic advisor to tech founders and senior tech leaders and executive leadership teams. But during this walk, there came a very clear download from infinite intelligence. And the word that kept popping up in my awareness was spiritual advisor, spiritual advisor. And I'm like, what is this? I am not a spiritual advisor. I paused and I asked, why are you asking for me to change my title from strategic advisor to spiritual advisor? And of course, the answer was pretty clear, saying, now that you have accepted to own your full power, which happened last week, if you go back and watch week 7 video, I had resistance to owning my power. And since I worked through it and I owned it, that's when the awareness came this week. And the infinite intelligence message to me was, now that you have accepted to own your full power, be truthful about who you are. Because you're not a strategic advisor. You're not going there to advise on strategy. They have plenty of strategy already. What you're really advising them on is the invisible aspect, that is either holding them back or even, providing them the ability to leap in their level of consciousness, in their purpose, in their impact, in their business. That's what you're going to offer to all these leaders. So what happened when I got this download on my epic layers? Emotionally, I cried and laughed at the same time. Cried because there was a level of resonance, recognition to, oh yeah, that's who I am, right? There's this level of recognition. And I laughed because I was like, nobody in their right mind would call themselves a spiritual advisor for tech companies. That makes no sense. Physically, when I got this download, I literally had to just stop my walk and allow for the download to come through into my physical body. And then came another word, systems transmuter. So I kept getting these different words aligning with what exactly am I, who exactly am I, and how am I positioning myself. So systems transmuter was also a very powerful role or a title that came through. And it's almost like someone who walks into an organizational system and transmutes the energy for its next level growth. That's kind of the visual that I had about what I was going to do. So on an intellectual operating system level, it was, my old narrative was I have to go with the strategic advisor title because then it's easy to enter a conversation, it's going to be palatable, they can relate better, and then I can slide in the fact that it's all the invisible dynamics. I can use the word invisible dynamics, operating system, all these terminologies to then be able to, take them where they're meant to go. But what became very clear is the word spiritual advisor is going to be such a strong title that's going to clearly repel those that are not meant to work with me and completely magnetize those that are so looking forward to someone like me to help them, to guide them, and to advise them in their organizational journey, and it may be even in their personal professional journey as executives, right? And so there was a clear knowing. There was a clear knowing that while my logical mind is going to fight this, which it did, this happened on Friday, and I've been ruminating about it for days in a row right now. The intuitive mind was very clear that this is how you're going to know who's clearly meant for you and who's not. Clear demarcation. You won't be spending a minute more than with someone who's not meant to be working with you, because the minute you use the word spiritual, they're going to repel. They're going to be like, run away from you. And however, it is the same words that is going to attract the people that are open and ready and want your kind of support in their reality. And in terms of consciousness OS, I shifted into someone who is the only one who does this type of work. What I mean by that is that there is no coach, consultant, or advisor that brings the wealth of combination of my expertise and experience, both 20 years in corporate as well as 10 years in personal development and spiritual awakening journey. And there is not one person that brings it the way I do, along with my talent and gifts of being, a performing artist, a singer, a visual artist, and a speaker. I bring a blend of things that no one else brings. So I decided I am going to be in the category of the one person who brings the culmination or combination or a composite of the gifts and talents of understanding the organizational dynamics and structure, being in corporate space and in tech space, and also someone who understands what it takes to up-level one's consciousness through my own personal journey and experience over the last decade. And that intersection is priceless to an organizational leader who's looking for a big shift in their consciousness as well as their organization's consciousness. So that's what I decided my identity is going to be, that I'm a category of one. So in terms of what really shifted, I would say it's a full stack across all 4 levels, but the deepest shift for me in this particular download was the consciousness level, because I realized that I was diluting my truth. Because if I go and tell I'm a strategic advisor, there are dime a dozen in the world, if not millions in the world that do that. But when I talk about spiritual advisor, uplifting the consciousness of the executives and executive leadership teams and the organization for the next level growth and leap, there are not many people that do that today. And more importantly, it's going to be ridiculed, dismissed, and mocked at by 95% of the people. But I don't care about the 95%. I really want to serve the 5% that are drawn to me for that very exact reason. So that was a big shift in my awareness, in my identity, in my consciousness operating system. And the beauty about this is that the infinite intelligence said to me very clearly, This is who you are always, or you were always. You just were not ready to even receive this truth until you decided to own your power fully. That was mind-blowing. So outer OS actions, I will admit that this one I've been sitting with a little longer than I probably need to. It's in my awareness. I've been debating, maybe should I go to consciousness advisor instead of spiritual advisor? The logical mind is still playing the game. But I did decide that when I visit Silicon Valley for the conferences end of this month, I'm going to be playing with both or all three titles and see what happens, because it's not until you give it a try you really understand what works and what doesn't work. So I may even try it sooner. I may actually reach out to some of my warm network individuals that I'm yet to reconnect with and bring this topic up and see what they have to say and experiment and see. I believe in experimentation over expectation, so I am curious with this one. So incident number 5, on Saturday, I got this email at the midst of when I was playing Mahjong with both my kids. We are big Mahjong players at home. My older one was visiting us and we all three were playing with a physical Mahjong board. We were playing the game. It was fun. And in the middle of that, I got an email in my phone. I didn't see what the email was because I only saw the Outlook notification. But instantly I had this intuitive hit in my heart saying that's an opportunity. I was like, wow, okay. And after I took a break from the game, I opened the email. It was actually an email from a headhunter from a very reputed company that talked about a leadership role and wanting to have, whether I was open to a discreet conversation. And of course, at that time, I was holding it on my phone. I responded saying, I'll be open to a conversation, because you never know where opportunities come from. But then on Sunday morning, when I opened up the email on my desktop, I noticed that the email was not from a professional corporate domain. It was from .gmail.com. I was like, that's weird. So here's what I did. I found the person on LinkedIn. I sent her an email message, which is, if you're not connected to the person, you can send an email, which is something you have as an availability if you're on a premium version of LinkedIn, which I am. So I wrote to her saying, hey, I just want to make sure that you reached out to me. This is the email it shows up as. Can you respond if this is really you? And then this person again responded to me saying, this is great. You're open to conversation. Can you send me your resume? And I was like, why would you ask me for my resume when your email ID is so shady? So I responded back saying, sure, I will do that. Can you please respond to my LinkedIn message? And then the person came back and said, I'm sorry I didn't respond to your LinkedIn message before, but I'm keeping all my professional exchanges on emails. That minute I knew this was a spam. So I reported the email for phishing and I moved on. But why am I sharing this? Because this incident, of course, created a response in my epic operating system layers. Emotionally, I was very curious. I was not triggered. I was not fearful, nothing. I was just curious. And physically, I would say I didn't rush. I took my time. I didn't immediately respond. There's no impatience. There's no urgency, no desperation. I took my time. I responded from a very cool, calm place. And intellectually, I don't know if any of you have heard the story, but when Christopher Columbus was looking for to arrive at India or a land as he was sailing, he saw birds before he knew they were closer to land. Birds were the sign that he was closer to the land. So the way I looked at this email and the intuitive hit that I got looking at it even before I opened it to say this is an opportunity, I said this is my birds before the land, which means there is an opportunity coming its way to me on its own. I don't know where it's coming from, but there's a clear knowing it is. And so I'm taking this as a proof. My narrative is this is proof that my real opportunity is on its way. On an identity level, consciousness operating system wise, I remember that I'm in the identity of a woman who trusts that the right opportunity is on its way. I don't need every door to be open. I simply need to remember when the right door opens, everything falls in place. And how do I know if that's the right door? Through my intuition. That's my superpower. So where was the shift with this incident? I would say on intellectual operating system and consciousness. Why? Because in the intellectual operating system, the old version of me or identity of me would have fallen into a narrative of either, getting too desperate, grasping for it, and later on beating myself up for being so stupid to have responded to some email like that. But the new version of me was completely grounded, self-aware, anchored in what is right for me can never miss me, and what is not for me cannot make its way into me. This is such a deep certainty, embodiment of certainty that I'm holding in my awareness. And I'm celebrating that because this new version of me is so anchored in the truth that what is meant for me is going to find its way in the best possible, with the most effortless path, with grace and ease. And that is my truth. The last incident of the week. This is where a $215 subscription that got charged to my debit card out of nowhere, because I wasn't expecting it, brought a whole new side of me that I didn't know existed. So here's what happened. I think a month ago, I ordered something online from social media, something that talked about improving your digestion and your metabolism and so on. So it was a green powder mix. It's something you just mixed in water and you had, and it was meant to improve your metabolism. I bought, I think it was for $80. I bought 4 boxes because it seemed to have been some kind of a discounted whatever. So that I got it and I forgot about it. I don't remember subscribing to it at all, but who knows. And when this thing hit my account, first thing in the morning when I woke up and I saw this, I was like, whoa, why would I subscribe for 4 more boxes when I haven't even finished one bit of the first box? So the incident triggered a huge ruffling in my epic operating system. Emotionally, I was triggered. I was upset, I was pissed off, if you may. And intellectually, or I would say physically, I would say I got upset, and so I immediately found their support number and fired off an email saying, I never subscribed to your to this. Why didn't you give me an alert? Why didn't you tell me ahead of time that you're going to charge my blah, 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 all that. So there's a irritated email that I sent out. And then intellectually, I was like, oh my God, they stole from me. How could they do this? This is unfair. They didn't even give me a heads up, right? You see how the mental narrative was completely full of chatter and irritation. In terms of identity, consciousness operating system, I was fully aware that I was in the identity of someone who perceived nothing but lack. There was an identity of being a victim and identity of being in lack, because, oh my God, that money is gone. Where am I going to get the money from? Oh, how could they do this to me? It is so unfair. So I'm playing the victim in this, right? I had to work through it. And so let's look at which operating system did I work through. I would say I had to work on the intellectual and the consciousness operating systems on this particular one. The intellectual operating system is where I had to do a big reframe. I paused for a minute and I asked, what would be a more empowering way to look at what has happened? Because my narrative was, they stole from me and it is unfair in the intellectual operating system. So I said, okay, how about you look at this as a business to business perspective? Someone on the other side is running a business. They probably are paying for their employees as salaries or contract employees. And maybe this subscription is the only way they're able to pay for their employees every month. So what if I happen to be giving $250 as a result of that process? So what? What if I'm actually helping someone pay their bills this month? That reframe completely calmed me down. It's like, of course. And then I realized the only reason I was reacting was because I was sitting in the identity of one that was in lack and also one of being a victim. How could they do this to me? Right? As if I was being wronged. So the minute I changed my perspective, saying I'm actually gifting this $215 or whatever dollars to this particular organization as a gift this month. Why? Which identity will hold that awareness on an intellectual level? An identity that is fully aware of the abundance that I hold. So the consciousness operating system automatically shifted to say, you know what? I'm abundant. I don't need to steal from somebody. I don't need to wrong anybody. I don't need to be a victim. There's plenty to go around in this world. I've simply given something that somebody else needs the most at this time. And I'm abundant. And there's a part of me that created this, because I always look at what part of me created this in the external world. And so a part of me created this so that I could still see where I had work to do in terms of falling into the fear and the lack and the mindset of being a victim, right? I was able to do instant alchemy of that whole aspect of me and say, I am abundant, I'm wealthy, I'm generous, and I'm grateful. And if there is a lesson underneath that I needed to capture, it is to not be so mindlessly ordering things online, to have a little bit more presence when I'm doing so, to become more aware. It was a welcome invitation for me to become more aware of what I'm doing when I'm placing orders. Is it a subscription? Is it not? Do I need to cancel? Like having more presence. It's with all of this incident was call more of my presence into play in my day-to-day life. And there was a reason why I was able to do this really quickly. This week, some of the books that I have read contributed big time to this shifts. The first book I'm reading is called The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence is the name of the author. I don't remember the full name. And the second book I've been reading as part of my spiritual mentorship program with Neil Donald Walsh is the Happier Than God book. And I think the most powerful question he asks in there is this who I wish to be? Right? He says you can recreate yourself every moment in your life. Just because past was in a certain way doesn't mean your future has to be the same or the present has to be the same. So the biggest question we can ask ourselves is, at every moment, is this who I wish to be? I had to ask that question the moment I felt the emotional charge and the reactive email go out. I had to pause and ask myself, is this who I wish to be? Answer was no. This is not who I wish to be. Who do I wish to be? I wish to be generous. I wish to be abundant. I wish to be expansive. You're making a choice. So I made that choice. I think so that I want to leave you with this particular question as part of this incident as a takeaway, is ask yourself every moment of the day when you are especially emotionally too riled, is this who you wish to be? Or is there a different version, a better version of you that you wish to be? Because if there is a better version of you, choose that. So behave in a way that aligns you with being that version of you emotionally, physically, intellectually, and in identity. That's the best way to shift anything really, really quickly. So these have been the incidents for this week for me. And if any of them resonated for you, if you've experienced any of these outer world events that triggered you, that upset you, or that gave you the aha moments, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. So this week, because the format is different, all the outer operating system actions have already been matched up to the respective incidents and events that happened through this particular week. In conclusion, this is what I want to leave you with. The most expensive thing you as a business owner, founder, executive can do is to dilute who you are and what you are offering to this world. And of course, we do that from a place of the desire for other people to understand us. But if you are a leader, if you are a change maker, if you are a visionary, you are here to birth something new. And that new requires for you to embody a version of you, the identity of you, the title that is not required to be palatable to the world. It simply has to be true to who you are. And the beautiful message from Infinite Intelligence to me was this: you're not here to be a watered down version of someone else's comfortable category. You are here to be a category of one, and you are here to name the category that didn't exist here before until you walked into the room. That is the category of one. And instead of wishing to change your circumstance, ask yourself, who do I need to be? Who do I wish to be? So that the circumstance then changes, because I have changed how I perceive it. I have changed who I believe I am. When you change your identity, your circumstance changes and the entire reality organizes around you depending on who you have declared yourself to be. The outer reality is a reflection and a downstream impact of the operating system that you're running within you. And when you change your internal operating system, the outer reality has no other choice but to follow. That pretty much sums up my entire Epic Leadership operating system in a nutshell. This week, I absolutely changed my internal operating system, as evidenced through everything I've shared. And you can change yours too. See you next week.